All right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, thank you for tuning in to another Monday morning tech chat show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, also known as SomeGadgetGuy, the SGG of this awfully terribly no good named podcast series. And the Q&A, of course, stands for question and answer, which this week I'm going to be leaning on just a little bit heavier. I have been in phone review heck and trying to shoot ahead for a bunch of videos that are going to be coming out sort of when the dam breaks, when the levees break. There's going to be a lot of stuff that I'm going to try and finish up in some pretty big spurts. But that, of course, means I've been kind of backlogged for a little while. I've got some news. We're going to be following up on some tech and politics and some tech and social media issues that we've been talking about on this podcast these last couple of weeks. But I got to the gadget block this week, and I realized I don't have anything planned. I don't know what to talk about. Last week was great. We had that interview with Jason Gurdon from TCL. I got to follow up on the LG Stylo 6, and then I've just been shooting. So I'll go where you folks lead me. So the Q&A, the live stream, the live chat this week, gonna be super critical for us having a fun show. If you've got questions, I know someone on the Discord posted about the DxO results for the OnePlus 8 Pro, and I'm about to upload a huge chunk of photos for the gallery for the OnePlus 8 Pro. We can talk cameras, we can talk audio kit, we can talk headphones if you guys want to talk headphones. So it's gonna be an interesting rambling show. I feel I always have rambling shows. This one's gonna be particularly rambly because that's how we do, folks. I hope that you and your families, those of you watching, those of you listening, obviously we are still in some heightened historical times. Wherever you might be, I'm sure near you has been some kind of protest or some kind of civil unrest or some kind of discussion. Maybe it's a heated discussion on what's going on in the world today. And so I hope you've been well. I hope you've stayed safe. Both because we still are under the glooming specter of the situation, and then on top of that, to add a little, or I should say, a very aggravated commentary as to the political history of the United States. I hope that you are okay. I mean, I guess it's the only civilly diplomatic sentiment that I can share right now. And we're going to have, on this podcast, we're going to have a little bit more to say about that. Let me get through housekeeping, and then I'll tease what's going to be coming up on the channel and on SomeGadgetGuy.com later on in the show. But I want to say, man, it's getting a little exhausting living through history, you know. Let me table that. Let's get through some other stuff here, especially because I'm already seeing some awesome chatter. Sam34, I'm seeing Magasiad, I'm seeing Kyle Ruggles, Kyle, my photo bro, Vince Novoa, Goran Petrovic, DT Inil, Chatty Boy, Gabaletta. I haven't seen Gabaletta in the live chat for a bit. Two Spirits, Heiki, Sulin, JT Moat. I know I'm missing people in Kenjuma, Vazikos, Root Knight, Natakun, Fabries, Alce Buckley. I know I'm mispronouncing all of your names, but we've got some chatter already here. So I feel like we've got a good crew. I feel like we're gonna have some fun times. Ronio 266 on their lunch break. Well, thank you for spending your lunch with me. And SD Sakuragi, give me a little wave. And Lar 1980. Opie. Okay, good. I'm glad we're seeing some chatter. We're seeing some hellos. And a fond and hearty hello to everyone here in the live chat. So let me get this out of the way right here. I'm going to knock out some housekeeping pretty quick. Like I said, I'm shooting ahead on a lot of content. I did not get a lot of content out this last week. And it's kind of telling in what I did get out. Very on the fly kinds of videos and reviews and commentary. Even my production work at Newegg, we had front loaded so much stuff for the Intel 10th gen launch that this last week, I did a pretty heavy shoot with them. Stuff that we need to finish up, not anything that's like, okay, we shot it and we can get it out today. All of this stuff takes time. Every video you see probably had a couple days of lead and work time that went into it, if not a couple weeks. So let me switch over into screen share. All of the stories that we're going to be talking about this week, the show notes this week, and then obviously all of the housekeeping. You can find everything on SomeGadgetGuy.com. That's the hilarious and terrible website that I run to host all of the junk that I make. So without further ado, number one with the bullet. The LG V60 update, video stabilization is fixed. So this is just a tiny little companion piece. If you caught my LG V60 deep dive, camera deep dive review, it's like a 30-minute camera analysis on the LG V60. I had some concerns. You know, a lot of things were improved. This is an upgrade over previous phones in a lot of areas, but there were a couple small pieces of this equation that were actually significant downgrades from the LG V50. And one of them was video stabilization. You would activate the software Steady Shot, and it would make your frame livelier and twitchier than if you just use the lens OIS. So LG just recently put out an update for the V60, and that seems to be fixed. And now I just have one other small issue with the V60 that's not so small when we talk about video production, but you can also hear what one of my concerns might be if you watch that video where I'm using an external microphone. I'm using a wireless lav. And I feel like you'll get a sense of what my other major criticism of the V60 has been so far. Then, as I started this show off with just a sentiment of wellness, that again, I hope you've been well during everything that's been going on in the world today. I felt like this was the appropriate time to share some information that will hopefully contribute to communities and people that that might be hurting right now. And so joining some of this blackout, I'm increasingly trying to minimize my footprint on Facebook and Instagram. Sharing a black square on Instagram means nothing to me, and I'm sure it means very, very little to a number of communities affected or involved. So let me screen share this. On SomeGadgetGuy.com, if you find this black rectangle, these are some causes that I think might be worthy of a small donation or some contribution or maybe even some volunteer work. The ACLU, the Equal Justice Initiative, Black Visions Collective, the ARPC, NAACP, and then some other areas just at the periphery of these situations: the CDC Foundation, AmeriCares, Feeding America, Run for Something, and the Electronic Frontier Foundation. I hope somewhere in that list is a cause or a community that you can, if you have the means to. Obviously, I always hate that call to donation or that call to charity. Obviously, if you have the luxury or the privilege or the disposable income right now to support an initiative, I hope there's something on this list that you can contribute to. Let's say you're not so much about certain minority-based organizations. I feel, especially in the tech community, we can all agree that some of the most economically disadvantaged people are some of the most vulnerable when it comes to things like broadband access, net neutrality, and online civil liberties. If you agree with that sentiment, hopefully you can find $1 or $5 to contribute to the EFF. All of these kind of work together in how we share information as a community, how we provide for some of those members in our community who might be hurting or might be disadvantaged, and how we amplify some voices that are being ignored or neglected the world over. And it doesn't necessarily need to be focused on one specific community, but I feel broadly, when we elevate the voices of everybody, I feel we have a better representation of how we should conduct ourselves and how we can accomplish some of these goals or some of the fixes that are sort of staring us in the face right now. Again, that's a bit of a luxury right now. That's a bit of a privilege right now. If you have the means, I'm sure any one of these organizations would appreciate your support. So, let me get this out of the way. And Matt Tyler, the ACLU donation for me was successful, and I hope it makes a difference. And again, I want to thank Matt. Again, with civil unrest happening here in North America, it's been emboldening seeing communities of people share some like-minded sentiment around the world, coming to a discussion or a conversation that doesn't directly affect them. And I feel like that's number one. Hopefully what we can move forward, especially in this tech community where I feel we have a good sense of this already, but just to make it explicit, that sort of tech empathy, that means a lot to me. That matters a lot to me. And so I appreciate those of you who are also joining those kinds of conversations too. Just because it doesn't immediately right in front of you affect you doesn't mean that you still can't care, or it doesn't mean that you still can't empathize. And it doesn't mean that your voice is irrelevant to this conversation. We have so much to learn from other people around the globe about how to handle this stuff here in the United States. So, yes, moving right along, knocking out the rest of this housekeeping. Let me go back to the screen share. 2 more quick bits. RavPower's portable 80-watt AC power bank. I finally finished this review. It took a while. It felt a little funny and tone deaf to talk about a travel battery when a lot of us probably aren't traveling as much as we used to, but I feel at some point we're going to start figuring out what the new normal looks like. And I know I'm going to have a family of gadgets to support when we're traveling, when I'm out in the field, when maybe we're road tripping, and I don't want to put my wife's laptop, my daughter's tablet, and my 3 phones all on my car charger. RavPower has an incredible solution for some travel power, which is also safe to fly and has a built-in AC plug. So you can plug in, some of your finickier gadgets that have proprietary charge ports or they don't charge well over USB-C. This was a killer product to kind of wipe out all of those issues, have a big chunk of battery ready to go, and it like more than doubles the runtime of my Chromebook out in the field. That Pixelbook Go can run for days with this combination without ever needing to plug in. So that's it's a review in anticipation of where we will hopefully be headed as a society soon. But then wrapping up the week, I was very fortunate. I was very lucky to spend some time chatting with a new friend, a soon to be work colleague. Someone I've had very, very little interaction with, but in a very short period of time, I feel like I've built up a very friendly rapport with. I was recently on the Android Central podcast and had a very thoughtful conversation with Daniel Bader about how we review gadgets. And after that conversation, I really wanted to kind of get to know him better. And so I was very fortunate to have him on a Creator Chat podcast, which went up on Friday for your weekend listening pleasure. But all of the Creator Chats you can always go back to. They're kind of evergreen, a little bit more focus on how someone got started in tech reviewing. But then I really appreciate Daniel took the time to kind of break down some of the differences. A lot of the people I've had on Creator Chat have either been freelancers or solo reviewers like me. People kind of building or hustling on their own platforms. And Daniel brings a very different perspective, writing for one of the largest Android publications on the web. And especially how one of the big blogs, how AC has been dealing with a drop in YouTube monetization, having to coordinate and manage a team while still making this a profitable endeavor. Some of the differences in things like ad revenue-based monetization versus affiliate marketing. Some of the backlash that the sites faced. When people see affiliate links, I faced this a little myself too. I have some partnerships with some audio brands, and then obviously I use Amazon links, and I include those. I disclose them as per FTC guidelines, but I've been trying to work that more than building in direct ads into my reviews and my videos. And that rubs a certain type of tech enthusiasts the wrong way. That, if you're going to profit from someone buying one of these products, then your review is suspect. And I completely appreciate and I understand that sentiment, but the ability for us to monetize this traffic and to create content is a really delicate balance these days in what our roles and what our responsibilities are. And so to have that thoughtful conversation about tech reviewing on the AC podcast, what our sort of responsibilities were, it was so refreshing to have someone kind of break down like, oh no, the big players are facing these kinds of challenges while us solo practitioners are facing those kinds of challenges. And if you want a good peek behind the curtain, I don't really feel like Daniel was pulling any punches. I don't really feel like he was trying to soften this or trying to hide this or, it would be better if people thought of us this way. I feel like he kind of went right to the point. Like, this is what we do. This is how we do it. And these are what our responsibilities are. So, wonderful conversation. I asked him, like, could he hang out for an hour? And we ended up talking for almost 2.5. I cut down the podcast a bit so that it wasn't like a ridiculous amount of behind the scenes, like, minutia nerd conversation, but I still left a lot of that in there. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it. Hopefully you'll give it a listen. And Daniel's someone that I really hope to work with, hope to collaborate with in some kind of meaningful way in the future. So that's housekeeping. It took a second longer in there, but there's so much coming. I've got OnePlus videos out the wazoo. I'm having to say goodbye to the Xperia 1 Mark II. So from Thursday through Sunday, I've been doing nothing but shooting the Xperia 1 so that I can do a camera follow-up. I want to do sort of a by the benchmarks. I'm just running the performance tests It's been some pretty heavy lifting. And then in there, next week, again, thoughtful conversations from content creators that I very much enjoy. We're having the first return to the Creator Chat podcast. Enabong Eda from Board at Work is going to be coming back next Friday for a follow-up conversation. He's in the Bronx. He's in New York. He's been seeing a lot of activity in terms of the situation and then recent protests, and he has a lot to share on, being a member of the tech community while also watching history unfold around us. And it's going to be a pretty heavy conversation. Just spoiler alert, fair warning. We get pretty deep in it, and I really appreciate him taking the time to share some thoughts when tempers and passions are kind of at a high right now. So, yeah, from Lar1980, it's the same as TK Bay also having to say goodbye to his, as he mentioned on his Saturday live stream. I felt so bad. I really wanted to join TK this Saturday, but as soon as the sun came up, it's like, I've got to finish this stuff. I've got to get out. And I missed all of my favorite live streams. The Brosefs, Matt and Sam. What is the name of your stream now? You're streaming a show on Twitch also. Please, someone share that in the live chat. I missed everything. I'm so out of it. That's why for the second half of this podcast, when we get into the gadget block, if you've got questions, I've got answers. So let's really make this a conversation this week, as opposed to me leading a discussion and having all the plans, because I don't have the plans this week. Across the Pondcast, thank you. Simon says Hypno, Aditya Anil. All right, let's get into some news. The news block is a lot of follow-up. One of the things I like about hosting the podcast, this show, the way that I like to, is a story doesn't break on a headline and then go away. When we find these issues in the tech community with tech and politics, especially tech and politics, I feel like it was a luxury that we really couldn't afford when we were just sort of over politics, or we weren't paying attention to politics in the tech community. Now I feel it's really biting us in the butt that we haven't been more vocal about tech policy. When these stories break, it is so critical that we actually watch the follow-up. So the first one I want to lead off with is actually a positive change. It's a step in the right direction, and it's a story we've been covering, I want to say, for about a month now, is Instacart. Let me switch over into screen share. This is coming by way of TechCrunch, written up by Natasha Mascarenhas. I've mispronounced your last name, and I apologize, and I should probably be better at a last name like that, given my lineage. But the story, Instacart makes changes to tip policy following shopper complaints. And from the article, I keep wanting to say Instagram. Instacart announced today that it's changing its tip policy to protect its growing shopper network from tip baiting. Tip baiting, a grotesque tactic, is when customers bait shoppers with a big tip and then reduce the tip to zero after they receive their groceries. It emerged as Instacart's demand skyrocketed due to the situation and people being unable to go to the grocery store. Instacart continues to say that tip baiting is rare, and less than 0.5% of orders have tips removed after delivery. It says tip totals have doubled for shoppers since this situation began. However, the policy change shows progress on how the company treats its shopper network, who have been essential as shelter-in-place orders keep people and the immunocompromised from going to grocery stores. The top of this article kind of breaks this down pretty easily. I really do not like the bidding aspect of people being able to front load a big heavy tip, and then they were given up to 3 days to fulfill the payment on that tip. What Instacart is doing now is it's going to whittle that back to 24 hours, and then there's going to be a follow-up policy. If someone is constantly putting in a big tip and then removing the tip, they're going to be audited. Their shopping is going to be audited, and then they're going to be removed from Instacart if Instacart finds that buyer is abusing the tipping process. I still feel like there's some change that needs to be kind of addressed in there. I don't think you should be allowed to front load a tip. I really don't. I feel like that's a bad policy. I understand why, because it allows someone to try and get their shopping ahead of the line. But in this current situation, it still seems to me like this would be potential for abuse. Now, 0.5%, that still sounds a little high, like it's less than 1% of those orders, but it's enough that in this current climate where an Instacart driver is putting themselves at greater risk and is trying to choose the effective orders that they want to fulfill, anything that starts to abuse that relationship, to me, would be very dangerous territory for the future of a gig economy app like Instacart. So at least positive progress on that story. I gotta get another drink of water here. And Sam, 34 kilometers. I received the email from them, Instacart, since I do them. This is nice. Hopefully we see just hopefully this is enough to accomplish the bulk of cutting that undesirable behavior from the Instacart platform. But something I also hope we'll see a little further refinement, how gig economy apps, this isn't unique to Instacart, but just how gig economy apps in general, work as intermediaries between consumers and the workers on this platform, because they're not employees. Hopefully we see some refinement to benefits and taxes and responsibilities and just labor costs. Little baby steps like this are very encouraging, that we really can figure this stuff out. It's just going to take us some time. So let me get this out of the way here. This next one, and I have to front load this with an apology. This is going to be a bit. We have been following the social media issues of conspiracy theories, spreading bad information, how to verify information, what are the responsibilities of social media platforms, and how that relates to the regulation of content delivery services in the United States. Like the Communications Decency Act and Section 230, and we've been talking about this. I want to say, some of my initial conversations were over a year ago, that we started looking at why Facebook and Google, and Google is YouTube and Twitter and all of these other platforms, they kind of get to have it both ways. They're not really publishers, but they can exercise editorial control. That's sticky. And also, they're not liable. They can't be held liable for content that's shared on their platforms, but then they also have the ability to control the feed of information that a user gets, and they can remove content and editorialize content through the removal of content. It's really messy, and our current political system, our current legislature seems woefully unequipped to catch up to how quickly social media has evolved. Gary the fireman, I think, has the right sentiment. I've really been trying to walk back my Facebook use. I'm not sharing like I used to on Instagram. It's just not fun. It's not fun anymore. And so we've got a trio of stories here, 2 from Gadget and 1 from The Verge, which is going to make Facebook less fun. And if that's the main goal I can accomplish, like as you're listening to these podcasts and I just continue to reinforce that Facebook is less fun by the day, and that more and more of us could walk away from that platform and be perfectly fine. And dang Pikmin, Facebook needs to break up. We had Elon Musk calling for a regulator review of Amazon. These mega data corporations, we need a new way of handling them. Our 20th century laws are inadequate to handle 21st century content. But let's chew through these. There's going to be a lot of chewing. Like, this is the roughage of the podcast right now. And let me get this out of the way and screen share. So first story. Coming by way of Gadget, written up by John Fingus, Facebook pulls nearly 200 accounts connected to hate groups. These users reportedly planned to stoke violence at protests. And from the article, Facebook is continuing its fight against hate, and this time with an added degree of urgency. The social network has confirmed to the Associated Press that it removed nearly 200 accounts for users linked to hate groups like the Proud Boys and American Guard, both of which were previously banned. The company was already gearing up to remove the accounts, but its hand was forced when it became clear these members were planning to stoke tensions in light of anti-racism protests sweeping the U.S. They not only intended to rally members to attend protests and foster confrontations, but sometimes were preparing to go with weapons, according to Facebook counterterrorism director Brian Fishman. I feel when your platform has achieved the kind of global reach where you need an internal counterterrorism director, we need some other type of regulatory action or oversight. I obviously disagree with the positions and the stances held by those types of communities and organizations. I don't feel that when someone is advocating violence that you necessarily is advocating violence on a privately held messaging system. Facebook is not a public forum. It is a private corporation, and it's traded on markets as a private corporation, that there is not a free speech issue in removing people from that platform. Where this gets really sticky is in the follow-up stories that we're going to be talking about. If Facebook has the editorial purview to remove people from their platforms, then they are just the act of removing content is a form of editorializing on content. And this is really sticky territory for any organization right now that built its business model on the distribution of user-generated content. Second article, moving right along. Facebook tells group admins to consider adding people of color as moderators to help them navigate the Black Lives Matter movement. Facebook published new recommendations for group admins yesterday. Oh, sorry. This is Off the Verge, written up by Ashley Carmen. And now, back to the article. Facebook published new recommendations for group admins yesterday evening in an attempt to help them facilitate conversations about race and inequality. Groups, which are essential to Facebook's business strategy, have struggled to moderate discussions about the Black Lives Matter movement and injustice in the U.S., with many admins and moderators deleting posts they consider, quote, political. The deletion decisions prompted members to leave groups they'd been in for years, argue with each other, form splinter groups, and sometimes temporarily shut the groups down entirely. Facebook directly addresses the political post ban that many groups follow and recommends that leaders create specific lists of topics that aren't allowed. It cites discussions on legislation, political candidates, or specific campaigns as examples. Facebook has previously recommended that groups create a list of rules to help moderate conversation, but these rules appear to be what's tripping moderators up now. A group dedicated to the musician, I don't know how to pronounce that, Hozier? Hoser? I'm pretty sure it's not Hoser. For example, allowed that artist's own political statements to stay live, but moderators deleted members' thoughts, as The Verge documented in a separate story yesterday. And again, what Facebook is advocating is editorializing and policing content, which they themselves do. They have thousands of people hired around the globe to look at content on Facebook to determine whether or not it's advertiser friendly. And now this is also a part of their guidelines on how to moderate and police discussions within individual Facebook communities. And that too is very sticky territory. Again, they're trying to aid the moderators of the communities on their platform, but they're doing so in a way and guiding in a way which to me seems to step on or seems to influence, I should say, the overall discussion of that community and that discussion. I think they're at the limit of non-involvement with these types of guidelines. We want the community to police their own conversations, but, maybe consider if your community might be discussing topics relevant to people of color, that you add some moderators who are people of color. That could be good. Like these not so subtle little pushes of, please don't make the federal government come down on us. Please don't make Trump try and eliminate Section 230. Please do this yourselves so that we as Facebook have plausible deniability and can continue to operate on both sides of this very gray area legal spectrum. So it's getting messier for any type of social media platform. All right, one more. Because again, we covered last week, Mark Zuckerberg did the whole, we're not going to police and we're not going to flag commentary and we're not going to editorialize and whatever a politician says, we're just going to post and let it be. And then that kind of backfired as Trump issued an executive order, which is pretty much toothless, but could have ramifications for Facebook, even though it was mostly aimed at Twitter. And now we got one more follow-up on this because, Mark Zuckerberg cited and said, well, we're not going to be like Twitter. We're not going to flag, when the president tweets something or shares something on a social media platform that, might be otherwise objectionable. If a regular person posted the same thing, we would remove it from our platform. But because the president is saying it, we're going to be hands off. That's different. It violates our terms of service, but that's different. Which to me really just felt like political appeasement. Like this was Facebook virtue signaling to the president that he would have a safe space on Facebook where Twitter was gonna be mean to him. Didn't work. Still facing the exact same kind of fallout as Twitter because of this ham-fisted executive order. Because of Mark Zuckerberg's public support for that, he faced some fallout from internally at Facebook from employees. This is another Engadget article written up by Carissa Bell. Zuckerberg says he will review policies after an employee backlash. Mark Zuckerberg shared a 7-part plan following widespread criticism from employees over his handling of Donald Trump's Facebook posts last week. The update comes after a week of increasingly vocal dissent from within the company. In the note, Zuckerberg laid out several potential changes to how the company approaches its policy and decision-making, as well as ideas for product changes. He promised more transparency and said he was, quote, committed to elevating the representation of diversity, inclusion, and human rights in our processes and management team discussions. Hold on, Zuckerberg, quote, okay, here's the quote I wanted to get to. I know many of you think we should have labeled the president's posts in some way last week. Our current policy is that if content is actually inciting violence, then the right mitigation is to take that content down, not let people continue seeing it behind a flag. There is no exception to this policy for politicians or newsworthiness. I think this policy is principled and reasonable, but I also respect a lot of the people who think there may be better alternatives, so I want to make sure we hear all of those ideas. And he followed up with that, I worry that this approach, talking about flagging like Twitter does, quote, I worry that this approach has a risk of leading us to editorialize on content we don't like, even if it doesn't violate our policies. So I think we need to proceed very carefully. The issue is a number of politicians and a number of political statements that have directly violated Facebook's terms of service. And now you are in an impossible situation if you're going to try and stay hands off on some people and you can't. Oh, sorry, I just bumped my table there. And you can't, if you can't operate your rules and your terms of service consistently and equally for all people on your platform, if all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others, this is exactly the type of internal corporate conflict, which is going to directly lead to outside regulators going, hey, what's up over there? There seems to be a problem. And I also disagree. I feel like if you're running a platform and you operate with a takedown, we're going to take down content that violates our terms of service. That in and of itself is, to me, a form of editorializing. We're sanitizing certain types of content so that we don't upset advertisers. Less, we're really trying to be an open exchange of information and hosting different viewpoints under some idealized notion of free speech. This philosophy gets super, super messy, very, very tangled up, very difficult to wrap our brains around. And, it also plays into some First Amendment issues, even though we are talking about a private platform. So I don't envy the people who are trying to come up with policy for social media, but it does seem to me we need a massive course correction. I really feel like the institution of social media entities is probably going to break at some point. And then whatever we make after that will probably be smaller little pocket communities. I mean, I not that I like Reddit's business model any better, especially with ties to different foreign investors and things. It's not that specifically, but the notion of creating subreddits, again, smaller, community-driven, and more appropriately moderated internally. I feel like that's probably going to be a major aspect of how we modify social media moving into the future. Otaku. Mark Zuckerberg is either an alien reptilian or a robot. I mean, I don't know. Mark Zuckerberg wouldn't be called a robot. He'd be called an android, right? At least if my watching of Star Trek is anything to go by. Two Spirits 411. Facebook and Twitter do not have enough moderators to check every single thing being posted and thus rely on an algorithm that messes everything up. I don't even know that there's much algorithmic manipulation at this point. I mean, obviously you set up filters. I mean, I have those filters on YouTube. If you throw certain words into a comment, it's going to get flagged and it's going to be sort of held for review on my YouTube channel. It doesn't seem to me that you can make anything much more sophisticated for social media. Like, I don't think Twitter operates with anything more sophisticated than like the built-in filtering that we get on something like YouTube. DT Anil, talking about subreddits, I can feel a smooth segue in the force. So yeah, it's messy. We're gonna have to keep following up because Facebook exerts an incredible amount of political influence. And I feel like they're a service that's very easily manipulated. And that's a scary combination. So we're gonna have to keep following up on that, as much as it pains me to make Facebook such a regular topic of discussion. The other one is not necessarily Twitch specific, but we have talked about in the past issues with multimedia, with licensing, with content, IP. And this is something that's kind of hitting Twitch streamers pretty heavy now. YouTube has terrible policy for how copyright disputes are handled. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like they're, just like we were talking with Facebook getting so much content and they've got humans that actually have to pull this content down. It doesn't look like there's going to be a good, fair use or commentary and critique defense on streaming platforms in the near future. It really seems to me like that is also an unwinnable fight in its current form. People are creating enormous quantities of content. I do believe in copyright to a degree, that an artist should be able to protect their work, how their work is utilized, licensed, distributed, who gets to profit off of the distribution of that work. But again, this is a 21st century conversation that we need to re-examine, that's being influenced by laws written decades ago, before we had this homegrown distribution. You know, like the big fear for the record industry when some of these laws were written were people who have 2 tape decks might be able to copy a cassette tape. Well, now we have the full force and power of the distribution engine known as the internet, and this stuff is getting really messy again. So a whole rash of DMCA takedown requests were sent out to Twitch streamers off of clips in their archives. This is coming directly from the Twitch support Twitter feed. This week, we've had a sudden influx of DMCA takedown requests for clips with background music from 2017 to 2019. If you're unsure about rights to audio in past streams, we advise removing those clips. We know many of you have large archives, and we're working to make this easier. This is the first time we have received mass DMCA claims against clips. We understand this has been stressful for affected creators and are working on solutions, including examining how we can give you more control over your clips. We adhere to the DMCA, which requires that we take action on content and streamer accounts upon notice from rights holders, as happened this week. Our guidelines for music have not changed, so please reference them here. This is an impossible situation. Saying commentary and critique. You know, you will go to a YouTube video and they're like, hey, we're going to be talking about this scary movie. And at the beginning of that YouTube video, they flash that like, oh, Section 502, fair use, blah, 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 commentary and critique. Claiming fair use is not an affirmative defense. You can't fair use and then use someone else's intellectual property. Commentary and critique is your reactive defense if a rights holder decides to take you to court. And then you pay for a lawyer to go before a judge against a multi-billion-dollar corporation to defend your right to use their intellectual property under the guise of fair use. You cannot affirm that defense before you see a judge. You can only react to a claim using that as your legal protection, which I don't know about you, but I don't have the money to hire lawyers to go up against Disney. You know, like that's just not something I can really do. Now, many corporations take a very soft touch approach, but in this age of creating content for YouTube and for Twitch and for any other platform out there, it is wildly difficult to work out the legal responsibilities. YouTube doesn't. They give everything over to the rights holders, and they allow the rights holders to decide, was this a violation or was this fair use? Or can they use your content? And then the rights holders go, well, sure, but we're going to take all their monetization. That's not really fair use. I mean, again, if you make a documentary, you don't have to clear clips in a documentary so long as you're holding to actual commentary on the media that you're using, the intellectual property that you're using. And I take a very conservative view on fair use. Like a reaction video to me is not fair use. A movie review, which just spoils the plot, is not fair use. Like you know what I'm talking about. Those movie reviews where it's like a 20-minute video and all they do is talk about the plot, and at the very end they go, well, I thought this movie was great. You know, like if the whole point of your review is to, for your own benefit, supplant someone from going to see that movie and monetizing that movie, then I don't believe you're fair use. I don't believe that's critique. I don't believe that's barely commentary on a piece of copyrighted intellectual property. So this is going to get messier. From my few game streams, what were the ones? Okay, so I don't have a ton of game streams on Twitch. I don't really keep those clips. Whenever I've done a game stream, it's usually just like, I've got an hour to game and I felt like opening up a chat window so we can all hang out. It's almost never like anything amazing happens that's worth me saving. But I did keep my clips from Alien Blackout. And all of those, both on YouTube and on Twitch, got removed. Or got takedown notices. 20th Century Fox, the soundtrack to Alien is in that game. And if I'm sharing a stream or a part of a stream from that game, that clip is going to have a content ID flag and I'm going to get a takedown request. So I'm pulling those. I've pulled those clips. You can't see my alien stream. Not again. I don't know that you'd want to. I'm just playing an Android game for an hour, but they're gone. So increasingly that's going to be, I think, part of the situation or the problem. The actual live stream on Twitch, I don't see where that's necessarily going to be affected. And Twitch is such a platform for that in that moment, real time interaction with their community. I don't feel that these takedown requests are going to be focused on that activity, but that's still a legal gray area where I feel at some point, if these companies are getting more litigious and more aggressive about a platform like Twitch, that we're going to have to start examining like how this stuff is monetized. How do you stream? Even in real time, someone might see, oh, this person's going to be streaming this game, and this game uses a soundtrack from this musician, and that musician might be able to in real time say, "Nerp, you don't have permission to use my music in the stream because you're not talking about my music, you're talking about the game." And that's different. I know, who was it? Angry Joe? It was for one of the Star Wars sequels. He had a video with the DMCA complaint on it. And you go and watch his reaction, he's playing the full audio of a trailer. And that trailer has John Williams' music on it. And he's not commenting on the music. Well, you're playing the music. You are no longer safely operating under commentary and critique by playing John Williams' score and not critiquing or commenting on John Williams' score. That's not fair use. So, rightfully, you should be issued a DMCA notice. That's what's so sticky. That's what's so difficult about how this stuff is handled, and why we need sweeping reform of copyright law in the United States. But that's probably not going to happen. It's probably not going to happen in my lifetime. Let's see if there was anything. From Root Knight 5, it sounds like when in the Middle Ages you had to pay taxes before you could contest the claim. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, from Natakun, you're going to see a lot of this kind of stuff. I posted a short clip on Facebook a few years ago on a radio antenna we made in school. Warner Brothers claimed my video for the 2 seconds of barely audible static music. From Punch Kun, they already have a system in place to mute VODs, but I don't see why it doesn't extend to clips as well. And I think one of mine got muted, but I don't think it was a clip. I don't think I've had any of my clips muted. But the issue is you cut a clip. If the clip is, like, hey, I'm talking to you and I'm playing Alien Blackout and I've got the game audio in the background, muting that clip, it doesn't, you'd never want to do that. The whole point was you got to see me interacting with someone on the live chat and talking about it and sharing my experiences with the game. So at that point, you just pull the clip. You just remove it. You don't sit there and try and mute. I think YouTube is working on some type of like noise reduction style sampling where if they've got the content ID for the music, maybe they can remove the music and still keep your speech or your commentary on that track. I don't know, man. Like at this point, like if I want to do a game stream and I want to keep the clips, I almost want to have a totally clean version with no game audio and it's just me talking. Because I've even stopped using music in my YouTube videos because there's no safe way to guarantee long form music licensing. So YouTube offers creators these tools and a music library. There have been songs in the YouTube music library that YouTube didn't properly clear, like samples or parts of songs that YouTube didn't do their due diligence on clearing the copyright, and it has affected creators. So those videos, there was a I want to say a Skirball, or was he Minecraft? I can't remember now. but a creator who used this little snippet of a song as his intro. And he pulled it from the YouTube music library. YouTube didn't appropriately clear that clip, and it got his entire channel copyright striked because every single video had this little clip of this song, and it was YouTube's responsibility to clear that clip. But you know what? There's nothing we can do. We pulled the clip from the YouTube music library, and I've had a couple videos, older videos, removed. I've removed them because I licensed a track. Like I used a third party, like I actually paid money to buy a track to use it in this appropriate production. But then the music library changed hands and my initial agreement was voided. And then they were able to send me a takedown request because and I hadn't paid them. I'd paid someone else. But that music licensing, even though it's set, you can put in legal language. Like as long as a music licensor is in operation, we have an agreement in perpetuity to use this music in your tracks for, the future of humanity. Oh, but then we got bought out by another company. So you don't have an agreement with that other company. So now the music in this video is copyright striked. But you could pay us again. Do you want to pay us again? You could sign up for a subscription. Do you want to subscribe so that these videos that are like 5 years old, you can keep them up on your YouTube channel? And no one wants to do that. So I've given up. I've given up using music in any form in my content because it's such a massive hassle. It is such a headache to know that you're operating on the right side of copyright law. Mr. Pulp Fiction, YouTube isn't muting videos containing copyrighted music. YouTube, it seems like most companies who hold the license are operating first by yanking the monetization. What's frustrating is even when I go through to mute a section of a video, like we started dealing with this on the Pocket Now podcast. We played a clip of some ad in South Korea, and it had music on it. And I want to say it was BTS, but we got hit with like an instant, like monetization warning. It wasn't a copyright strike, but it was a warning. And we went through and we muted that section of the video, and then we removed that section of the video, and our monetization was still delivered to the rights holder of the song that was no longer in that podcast. And we couldn't find a way, as Pocket Now, we couldn't find a way to reappeal that decision. And so we basically just pulled the episode. That episode disappeared from YouTube, and it was only available as a streaming audio podcast. So it's really messy. You kind of have to be abusing often YouTube's content ID system before they start auto muting or pulling your channel. I don't think you'll really get to a point right now where your videos will be muted. I think very, very quickly what'll happen is your channel will just be removed. And so that's the harsher punishment. And there's no clear guide on when you get those 3 copyright strikes and your content and your channel's removed. Someone could just issue a ton of takedown requests off of a music licensing issue. Again, let's say your theme song had a snippet of copyrighted material in it. They could nuke your whole channel in one action. You don't get any type of warning or the ability to appeal if they hit it all at once. From J-Mo, I feel like if music is included in a game and the video in question is of the game, the music should be included in fair use as it's a part of the game. That is a completely reasonable feeling. That is not how copyright law works. Commentary and critique. Are you commenting on the music? Are you critiquing the music? If no, then you aren't technically operating under a legal examination of fair use. I'm in the middle of Thumper, and I very much enjoy how the music is aiding and sustaining this environment and the mood, establishing the pressure and just the anxiousness of what I'm trying to accomplish as this little space beetle. And then I can play a sample of the music, a very small sample of the music, and that's it. Under a very legal examination of how commentary and critique operates, that's about it. But again, you're not wrong. We just need to reform how copyright works in an age where everybody can create derivative content based on the licensed content that people own. And I don't think there's a good answer. We're gonna have to deal with some very messy legal situations before we can sort all of that stuff out. Simon says, Hypno, all of Kevin MacLeod's music is license free, just needs to be accredited. There are a number of artists who are being very generous with their catalogs. The only issue is that doesn't last forever. Again, I was in a music licensing partnership with a stock footage company, and then they changed ownership, and then that was removed. Kevin MacLeod could decide in a year that he is changing his relationship with distribution, and then they will have the rights to music. It's very noble. What Kevin MacLeod does with his music library is very noble. It's very giving, and he deserves a lot of attention and support, thumbs up and kudos, but that could change. So does that nuke your YouTube channel? Is that worth the risk for you? And some of the other solutions are, well, you've got to sign up with a music service that's more of a subscription. But I don't want to pay $15 a month or $10 a month or even $5 a month to license audio forever. I'd like my YouTube videos to kind of exist for as long as they possibly can, but I'm not going to be making money enough to support the production of those videos with music that I might not be able to sustain next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. There is no such thing as a true in perpetuity where you get to utilize that content forever. It can always change on you. It can always morph on you. And then that's where it bites you in the butt. And your only recourse is to remove it. I mean, that's really, at the end of the day, the only safe play. You get hit with one of these takedown requests, it's not worth it fighting the lawyers of Warner Music Group. It's not worth it fighting the lawyers at Disney. You pull the plug and you walk away. And that's, the only winning move is not to play. From Opie, what's in the mug? Right now, water is my speed. I've been outside shooting with the Xperia 1. I have the gnarliest sunburn. Like, I usually tan pretty well. But I am red skin right now. And it hurts a lot. This bad one was Thursday. I sweated through 2 applications of sunscreen, SPF 50, and got a real good burn going on my arms. So it's pretty rough. Sorry, I know I missed a lot of conversation on that, but it's heady stuff, and I also feel like this is a part of the part of the era, a part of this time. User generated content, homegrown content, outlets like YouTube are trying to walk away from that. They're not really supporting smaller players. I think now is a good time to sit back and say, like, man, unless you can write your own music, just don't bother. The entertainment value of commentary on a YouTube channel, on a movie review channel, on a music review channel, on a gadget review channel, it's increasingly not worth the headache until we can amass enough collaborative pushback that we can re-examine how copyright law works. And that takes money. It takes like every single YouTuber contributing to a singular voice to lobby. And I just don't see that happening anytime soon. Charlie Spirit song. # some sunburnt gadget guy. Yep. Yep, some crispy guy from Alias too. So immediately flowing out of that conversation, commentary and critique, now's the right time to talk about the subreddit. Every podcast has a subreddit. I am no exception, but my subreddit is all about trying to highlight and promote content producers and content creators that we think deserve more attention. Obviously, there's a lot of focus on YouTube, but we've been getting, actually over this last week, a few more submissions on written articles too. People writing on smaller or personal blogs and contributing to a tech consumer electronics discussion. And so if you head on over to reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles, you're going to see a tiny little subreddit. It's small, but it grows every week. We pick up a few new members, a few more subscribers, but all of it's focused on, we think this video, this article, this conversation deserves more attention. You're going to find content creators with a dozen subscribers, and you're going to find content creators with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, but all of it is in service of trying to promote and trying to boost something that algorithms might be taking for granted or pushing to the side. Reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. These are the top stories. Let me get this out of the way here. On the subreddit this week, number one with a bullet. I think I've used that phrase 3 times in this podcast. Number one. This is coming by way of Under KG with 1.6 thousand subscribers, 1,600 subscribers. LG Velvet Review, One Thing Wrong. So this is the first video, as English-speaking video, I should say. This is the first English-speaking video I've seen on the LG Velvet. Top of the subreddit right now, leading the charts. Immediately after him, we've got a microphone showdown from TK MyBay, the Kamika VS09MI versus VS09TC. Komika makes these great little creator microphones. I use Komika lavs. I really like their wireless lavs. And so TK's got a showdown using a USB-C lav on the Sony Xperia 1 Mark II against a lightning connector lav. Let me take this all one more time. TK has a showdown between these two shotgun microphones, the Komika USB-C shotgun versus a lightning connector shotgun on his iPhone 11. Again, you want good, thoughtful, nuts and bolts kind of commentary. That's TK. And then rounding out the top 3, Techspert. He's got 280,000 subscribers, and he's digging into the Motorola Edge and Motorola Plus, a tips and tricks guide, some of the best features on those phones. We've got TK's Saturday morning stream in the top 5, another Xperia 1 Mark II video that he put out. My creator chat with Daniel Bader is wrapping up the number 5 spot. Techspert looking at the Nokia 1.3. Jason, Painfully Honest Tech, looking at the iPhone SE versus iPhone 11. We've got Daniel Bader showing up on, Benefit of the Dowd, Adam Dowd's podcast. Adam's actually a creator. I want to get back on the creator chat soon, so I'm going to have to reach out to him, see what he's doing. We've got a film journal from Terry Warfield. We've got Legal Eagle. I'm a huge fan of Legal Eagle. And if you want a much more learned, legally minded conversation about President Trump, publishers, platforms, Legal Eagle has a phenomenal video kind of explaining some of the more scholarly issues with Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act and what a president can do in terms of speech and moderating platforms. And also his videos are just phenomenal. He does like a whole bunch of let's analyze the courtroom scene of this movie and break it down piece by piece. And this is absolutely how you should get disbarred. So I'm a big fan. That is a great YouTube channel. And we've got a couple other just players in here. Some other videos that I want to point out. We've got Ben's Gadget Reviews, checking out the Poco F2. We've got Enabong, Bored at Work, looking at a $200 Redmi Note 9. Got some more podcasts, raw comparisons between Huawei and the Nokia. We got Gadget Bite looking at the Oppo Reno 3. I mean, just a really hearty mix of some fun and engaging content. Spreading out the love on headphones, home accessories, on smartphones, on network connectivity, on Arlo cameras, building a Pi NAS. So if you have a Raspberry Pi and you want to make your own network attached storage, Gary explains some really, really techie and geeky content. So it's my plea every week. More than ever before, content creators need your active support. Watching a video and shrugging your shoulders and saying, hey, that was neat, I hope to make more, isn't going to get it done these days. We are all working against the algorithm, from Android Central to Viper. Everyone is facing systemic issues in how platforms distribute content to the people who subscribe to our individual channels. And if we don't make noise for content creators, for the creators we enjoy, then those creators are going to start to vanish. For those of you who have the means and can support directly through, super chats or Patreons or buying people a cup of coffee, some direct contribution, that is hugely appreciated. But at the same time, if you don't have the means to, and you have the ability to retweet or share or comment or subscribe, even thumbs upping, the one additional click of clicking a little up arrow on a platform like reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles, that is too much effort for most of the people that peruse the subreddit. We broke 10,000 unique views last month in May. We have 890 members, but 10,000 unique views. If every time you went to reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles and you clicked a couple up arrows, you would already be doing better than, you would be the top 1% of engaged users on that platform. Easily. You would start building up this kind of cred. You would be building your Reddit karma, and you would have more influence over other discussions on Reddit. All of those things snowball. And when something gets popular on a little subreddit, it's more likely to be shared on a larger subreddit, and then that blows up a channel for finding new viewers, new audience, and new participation. But you actually have to participate. You actually have to engage and do 3 or 4 more mouse clicks than just clicking the play button. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but spreading the word on that engaged user, on that engaged participation is huge moving forward. So, Adichie Anil, Android Central is at 500,000 subscribers. How are they being plowed by the algorithm? Does Google even care now? Well, if you listen to my creator chat with Daniel Bader, you'll get a firsthand examination of the challenges that they're facing, given Google as a publishing platform, algorithms, and monetization. Go check out that podcast. It's some good listening. And Matt Tyler, this is exactly what starts to happen. Tech trinkets vanished. I followed him for years, lived not far from me. No idea what happened to him. No social media, no more videos posted since last year. Such a shame, but this kind of thing happens on YouTube for many reasons. And one of the ways that you can buffer against that is if you like someone's content, support them, participate with them, engage with them, and share them. And we get to see, oh, people are out there and contributing. This is worth it for me to continue making this content. So, let me get this out of the way here. So, Goran Petrovic, under KG, the Velvet Review is pretty popular on his Korean channel. Just started English one, and he is pretty good, I must admit. I mean, yeah, you look at that channel, and I'm kind of winking at, he's only got 1,600 subscribers. No. His channel is like super high quality, premium polished. It's you can tell this guy's got some chops and he's been doing this for a while. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the subreddit. Support your local content creator, support your international content creator, support your lunar content creator. I don't know. You might be watching some people that I don't even know are in this galaxy. But one of the ways that I've chosen to try and help this is by building a little community focused on that. So if you'd like to participate, reddit.com/r/glowingrectangles. I want to plan something fun for when we break 1,000 members. We're at 890 and we're growing every week, little bits here, little bits there. But I guarantee you, if you've never been before, if you go to this subreddit, you will find a content creator you've never seen before. And it's pretty exciting when you find a new channel or a new voice or a new topic that you haven't seen before done well by people who are passionate. And a lot of these people, it's purely the passion, because a number of folks on this platform have not yet reached monetization. So reddit.com/r/glowingrectangles. Go check it out. Tell them Juan sent you, because I'm the moderator there. So I'll say, hey, I sent you to me, and then that's cool. So let's move on to some Gadget block commentary. Two Spirits 411. When the subreddit gets to 100,000 subscribers, we will have a party at the Creepy Tunnel. By the time my little subreddit gets to 100,000 members, I feel like we'll have been past social distancing issues, and we should be able to hang out in person. It's pretty great. Low light photography contest. Okay. There are a couple very short a couple very short Gadget block stories that I want to highlight. First is simply just anytime there's some fun traction in the world of Android gaming, I want to start doing a better job of bringing it up. Android mobile in general has a terrible reputation for gaming. And I feel it's because it's overshadowed by a bunch of really awful gotcha mechanic, pay to win, gem swap games. You know, the majority of what you have to chew through on Android is pretty terrible, but then you miss out on some gems. And Android has actually become a very interesting place for sort of older PC ports and console ports to have a second life. A Stardew Valley, Thumper, Battle Chasers, KOTOR, the original KOTOR, all of the Rockstar games, the Oddworld collection, the Rockstar, you know, like Bully and Grand Theft Auto. You know, there are some really awesome second life games that you can just fire up on your phone. And now we have phones that are powerful enough to play these games well. So this came out of Android Central. Dead Cells is one of the best games on the Play Store right now. Android Game of the Week, and it's worth every penny. If you have not played Dead Cells, it is brutal and unforgiving and punishing, and you live, die, repeat, live, die, repeat. You're going, actually from their article, you're going to die in Dead Cells, and you're probably going to die a lot. And I didn't feel like this got quite enough traction, that Dead Cells made it to Android. To me, this is an excellent roguelite platforming combat game. It's so fun, and it is that live, die, repeat, live, die, repeat, live, die, repeat mechanic is very engaging. It's one of those, like, it's kind of like Ape Out for me, if you've ever played Ape Out. I can't play it for long. Like, this isn't a game that I sit in a really comfy chair and I spend all night playing this game. I can maybe game it hard for about an hour and then I'm exhausted, but it's a very satisfying hour. And you end up doing a few more runs than you think you will. Well, for me on Ape Out, it's like, okay, one more, and then I'm going to go to bed. Oh, well, okay, one more, and then I'm going to go to bed. And then I get to about an hour and I'm exhausted. But I feel like, man, I had a really good hour of gaming hard on this game. So I don't know exactly how to do this. I kind of want to revisit the idea of using Twitch as my platform for Android games what don't suck. But again, it's tricky because, like, I can't really save clips because I'm going to have the game audio while I'm playing the game. So I'm not sure what to do about that. Like, I might have to join Android Central's. We'll write about this game as a text article. And here's a trailer from YouTube. And if you want to watch, I streamed it, but then, I have to pull the stream. I don't know. But anyway, if you haven't played Dead Cells and you're in for that kind of a gaming experience, go check it out. It's already easily ranking as one of my, it's just such a great game in general. It's already ranking as one of my, if you haven't played this on Android, you really should. Again, up there with some of my other favorite arcadey games, twin stick shooters. You can get Castlevania. It's like $4 or $5 on Google Play. There is some really, really good stuff to throw on your phone if you really want to enjoy the act of gaming. From Jim72165, a lot of PC gamers won't even look at mobile games. And actually, to be fair, a lot of my recommendations are often console or PC ports. Like a JRPG like Battle Chasers, the 10 Tons. They're a developer that made Neon Chrome, Undead Horde, Tesla versus Lovecraft. Those twin stick shooters started out as Nintendo Switch games. Awesome. If you like arcadey twin stick shooter combat, they're so fun. Neon Chrome is such a fun game to just keep revisiting. I love that. I again, burn a half hour, just pew, 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 pew. So great. From Aditya Nil, is there a Doom port for Android? I'm glad you brought that up, Aditya, because if you have a Chromebook, Doom 1 and Doom 2 are currently free. Look at that segue, huh? I don't believe there are any of the Doom like 2016 or the current Doom, but yeah, if you have a Chromebook, I have a Pixelbook Go. I'd already purchased the original Doom, but I didn't have Doom 2, so I got that one for free. So that's good times. Yeah, I really didn't have much else to say about that, but they're free. So go buy a Chromebook and you'll get Doom for free. You'll get $10 worth of classic id software with the purchase of your Chromebook right now. Gary the Fireman, I still play Fortnite exclusively on my Razer phone too. LAR1980 is Command & Conquer on mobile. I loved that game on PC, and they have just released the remastered version. I did not know that CNC Remastered was out. I need to kick my own butt for not knowing that, because that's one of my all-time favorite classic PC games. Even so much that I Forged Battalion. If you haven't played that, that's sort of a spiritual successor to Command & Conquer. Is really, really good, from Petroglyph. So I got to go check that out. They have a terrible pay-to-win mechanic EA version of Command & Conquer that it almost made me cry. So when I finally got into the beta, I played it for 45 minutes, and at the end of that 45 minutes, I was so upset, I was almost crying how bad the implementation of resources, materials, and pay-to-win mechanics, EA did us wrong. From JT Moat, I'll admit that I have zero interest in more hardcore games on Android. Temple Run and 2048 are more my speed. So many good games like that. Like, I like magnet balls. I like dots, just drawing dots and making little squares out of dots. And literally, the game is dots. I think it's Dots, a game about connecting people or something like that. Just Boggle, great game if you like word games. Again, that's still gaming. It's just not hardcore gaming. Simon says, Hypno, that segue was smoother than a Porsche's bonnet. And again, these people are saying, oh man, I used to love Doom. Actually, Doom on mobile is kind of a fun, revisit. Your super spritey pixel graphics, most phones can run it really well. I was running Doom on X-Scale 600 megahertz processors back in the HP iPAC days. So you put Doom on a Snapdragon 630 and you're in for a pretty good gaming experience. It's doing just fine. Some boggle shill guy. All right, good times. All right, one other. This is just a this isn't a throw shade at Samsung story. This to me is a gadget story that we need to talk about here in North America, because I don't think people around the globe always fully understand how messy the United States carrier market is. I wanted to point this out because I feel like by playing ball with carriers, it's going to make Samsung look bad. But this is not Samsung's fault. This is the relationship between Android and Qualcomm and how that relates to carriers. So the headline here, by the way, this is from XDA, written up by Max Weinbach. Verizon Samsung Galaxy S20 5G UW model has less RAM and no expandable storage. So they broke the story on this. We didn't know from the original sheet before the phone launched. We saw that there was no support for external memory. And now that the phone has actually started moving out, that is true. We have a SIM slot, but we don't actually have micro SD card expansion. And at the same time, there's less RAM. So there's only 8 gigabytes of RAM on the Galaxy S20 for Verizon. So why is that a problem? Is because it's still the same price as any other Galaxy S20. Component pricing through Qualcomm has jumped. Qualcomm forced 2 components by removing the LTE modem from the Snapdragon chipset. So it doesn't matter if you want 5G or not. You still have to buy a separate modem to build into your phones. And then on top of that, Verizon's implementation of millimeter wave 5G is causing every single phone manufacturer to re-engineer how the antennas work on their phones. Another good example is the OnePlus 8 having a different button spacing for Verizon than on the unlocked model. So if you get a case for the unlocked OnePlus 8, it might not fit or it might not work on a Verizon OnePlus 8 UW. So we're seeing this stuff compound. And of course, all of those costs, all of those fees are getting passed back down to the consumer. Samsung is in an unwinnable situation. They want proper Verizon 5G support for all of those Verizon subscribers. They can't deliver a phone at $999 that is exactly the same as every other Galaxy S5, Galaxy S20 that has 5G support, but is only sub 6. Those additional costs either have to be absorbed, subsidized by other phones, or passed directly back down to consumers. So again, you can look at a OnePlus 8 in India being a lot cheaper than a OnePlus 8 in the United States. I think OnePlus's strategy is to sort of spread costs out across every phone. So if you buy an unlocked OnePlus 8, you are partially subsidizing the extra costs that go into making a OnePlus for Verizon only. And that's how OnePlus can arrive at similar pricing on Verizon. It's because everybody's pricing kind of went up a little. Samsung taking a slightly different approach. Galaxy S20 is going to cost the same, but it's less stuff. You don't get expandable storage, and you don't get as much RAM. This is going to be a really ugly part of this conversation, and it's not satisfying. It's not me trying to defend Samsung or me trying to defend OnePlus. But it's like, I get comments from people in Australia. I get comments from people in India. I get comments from people in the EU. And like, well, it's not worth it. A OnePlus isn't worth it because it's too expensive. Why would they charge that much? And you're like, well, look, it's not that hard. Look, use your eyes. Read an article. It's right here. When we see how this market stuff actually plays out, man, we got triple stung. This 5G rollout is complicating everything, is jacking up prices. Qualcomm made a monopolistic end run on modems, and then carriers doubled down. Carriers were like, oh, it's going to keep your monthly fee a little bit higher, so let's go for it. Oh, this phone isn't $1,200. This phone is $40 a month for 30 months. See? Isn't that better? You could just do that. Then you don't pay $1,200 and you can still own a premium phone. So it's frustrating. This is one, like, I feel such huge sympathy for Samsung because they're going to look bad no matter what. Qualcomm isn't going to face public scrutiny for their modem decision. Verizon has the consumer base. So people aren't looking at the price tag as a Verizon issue. They're looking at the price tag as a Samsung issue. And then those of us who are Android nerds are looking at those specs going, but why? Why does it have to be different? Or why do you have to remove another feature that some of us care about? And we still arrive at $1,000 price tag. But it's not really Samsung's fault. And that blows. That really sucks. From LAR1980, I read an article earlier today with rumors that Samsung could introduce ads with One UI 2.5 on the M series and some A series devices in some of their stock apps and lock screen. Well, considering that I own a really expensive Samsung TV that serves me ads, I wholly expect that at some point we'll see that happen on phones. I'm actually kind of surprised that we haven't seen more of that. My Galaxy Note 4 actually has sort of a semi-permanent Samsung pop-up telling me about the other things that I could be doing with Samsung, and it bugs the pee out of me. It's really annoying. It's this semi-constant notification that I can swipe away, but it comes right back. So it's not great. From Heiki, how carriers have gotten so much influence in the United States. Do you know the process, how they have taken that much decisive power over manufacturers? It's really complicated. I should probably try and do some more scholarly research on the full breakdown of how the telecommunications industry got bifurcated as we were moving to 3G and we were separating CDMA carriers from GSM carriers. That to me, as I started paying attention more to the business end and to the market end, that to me seems to be one of the major splits. You had greater consumer lock-in. Carrier stores became the front lines for how consumers shopped their gadgets. And that combination exerted a tremendous amount of influence over the contracts market. So you went in, you got a phone on discount, you signed a 2-year agreement that you had to stay with that carrier for 2 years. And we also know that consumers are kind of lazy. You know, when it's time to re-up their contract, not a lot of consumers were looking at, well, should I switch carriers? Should I go with this other provider? Should I swap this phone? It was, 2 years is up and now I can get another great deal, saving a couple $100 on a really expensive phone. So let me just do that. And then you signed in for another one. And that has sort of morphed into the market that we see today. Not a lot of opportunity for an unlocked phone if you don't get the benefits of an unlocked phone. So for example, OnePlus. There is a OnePlus 8 unlocked. It was just recently certified to work on Verizon LTE. But you still have to pay full price. So you don't get the benefits of Verizon 5G. I believe the only carrier 5G that works is T-Mobile. So it won't work on AT&T when you start getting more AT&T 5G. It's not going to work on Verizon. It doesn't have millimeter wave or sub-6. It's only your unlocked OnePlus 8 is really just a T-Mobile 5G phone. It'll kind of work on LTE for other devices, but why would you buy a OnePlus 8 if you don't have any expectations of using that 5G support when you could buy a OnePlus 7T, which is still a really good phone? So 5G is going to institute yet another GSM versus CDMA style of carrier lock-in, where my Verizon 5G phone doesn't work on AT&T 5G, so I don't want to have to rebuy a phone if I want to switch carrier. You know what? It's just too much of a headache. It's too much of a hassle. I'll just stick with Verizon for now. It is what it is. And that kind of exhaustion is where a lot of consumers are at. So it's really frustrating. And JT mode, the carrier contract system was the source of the idea that everyone buys a flagship phone because $20, $30 extra per month is far easier to stomach. And for a lot of them, it was like Oh, TK Bay confirming that the unlocked OnePlus 8 is only T-Mobile at the moment. Okay, good to know. I know. I mean, like I'm on Google Fi, so I'm technically on T-Mobile. And from Heikki again, here in Finland, operators don't have that much power. Carriers sell here just the same phones with other electronic outlets, and the prices are usually the same. And a part of that is also carrier regulation. I don't know of many other markets that allowed carriers to duplicate similar technologies unregulated. I feel like in the EU, everyone just sort of agreed on GSM and they had a similar LTE style rollout. And if you as a consumer bought a phone anywhere, you could kind of take it to any carrier and that was fine. It's really only like in North America, as far as I know, that we allowed this separation of CDMA versus GSM to really root itself in humongous different business models like Verizon versus AT&T. And it didn't provide consumers anything better. That wasn't really competition. It was just the illusion of competition that actually enforced more consumer lock-in. But again, like I said, I really should go back and like kind of scholarly chew through some of the business decisions from the 80s to the 90s that helped pave the way for this, because it's really frustrating stuff. Gary the Fireman, Verizon really leveraged its heritage as a former Baby Bell and therefore snatched up lots of smaller regional players to cement their footprint. I remember my mom was a diehard Sprint user for years, just so that she could walk away from those Bells. And she'd been used to work for Bell back in the day. Let me kind of sit up here. My nose is kind of itchy. I didn't take an allergy pill today. I'm kind of scratchy and itchy and sunburnt. This is all super gross. So, I mean, that's going to kind of wrap up our gadget block here. If you folks watching in the live stream, you have any specific questions that you wanted to talk about, if you wanted to talk about DxO, we could talk about DxO. If there are questions about any of the phones I'm reviewing, I have too many phones. In the meantime, I have to say a fond farewell to my time with the Xperia 1 Mark II. A phone that I have, I can't say enough nice things about how much of I've enjoyed using this. And it's hilarious and sad that one of the videos that I really wanted to put together was the year to year. I used to do those more regularly, but the 1 year upgrade videos, to me, that's like one of the most compelling recommendations is a phone improved enough in 1 year that you might find someone that you could recommend an upgrade from year to year. And I finally got my hands on a loaner of the Xperia 1 Mark I, a member on the Patreon who only wanted to be credited as Becca. Becca sent over a loaner Xperia 1. And it got here just in time for me to send back the Xperia 1 Mark II, and not enough time for me to properly shoot a video comparing these monoliths. So I've got some footage of the 1 Mark II, and I've got some footage of the original Xperia 1. And I think I need to do kind of like a retrospect, like looking back on the Xperia 1 Mark I, just to try and talk about it. I don't know, like we do that all the time with Apple, iPhone XS versus iPhone 11, Samsung Galaxy S10 versus Galaxy S20. And I just feel like more of that needs to be done for Sony, for Motorola, for LG, especially when they are iterating. The 1 Mark II is an Xperia 1 second generation. And I think that's an interesting conversation. It's just, the timing didn't work. But a huge thank you to Becca for sending me the loaner, and I will try and get something shot with it. So, from SP12er, I don't know what your name is on Twitch. I apologize. I'm wondering whether DxO has that up now. For the Xperia 1 Mark II, I don't believe they do. From Alice Bockley, when can we expect your OnePlus 8 Pro review? Would you say it offers much better media consumption experience compared to your Pixel 4? Is it just the details? I do not know when my OnePlus 8 Pro review is going to go up. Right now, I am under such a backlog of videos on different phones. I really couldn't tell you. I do have a OnePlus 8 mini review shot that I'm hoping will go up in a couple days. But unfortunately, I don't know. The next major video that I really want to get done for the OnePlus 8 Pro is the camera deep dive. I'm so far behind on collecting all of the camera samples for all of these phones that those are going to be coming like in a surge once I have the time to sit down and really cut them all up, because those videos just take so much work. And I feel once I'm done with the OnePlus 8 Pro camera review, I'll kind of have the final feelings on using the phone as a whole. But it's I really feel like, you know, the Pixel 4 XL last year was one of the most slighted phones of 2019. Like, I think it got unfairly savaged by tech reviewers. I'm having a very similar feeling with the OnePlus 8 Pro. I'm kind of glad we're seeing consumers continue to buy that phone out. It's completely out. It's often out of stock from people snatching them up as quickly as they can, and that they're selling for a premium secondhand because they're so hard to get. And there is something really special about the OnePlus 8 Pro overall experience. Or again, you want to compare a $999 phone like a Galaxy S25 GUW on Verizon versus, you know, a OnePlus 8 Pro, and I feel there are some very good reasons to go with the OnePlus 8 Pro over a Galaxy S20. From Simon Says Hypno, TCL 10 Pro better than the Xiaomi Mi Note 9. No idea. Mi Note 10. I have not used a Mi Note 10, and I think spec for spec, the Mi Note probably is going to win. But I also have concerns about Xiaomi's monetization practices, how they sample your data and store it on servers. And I feel like TCL will probably be a bit more reasonable in not doing some of that, where you also get some again, it's a really nice phone when priced in the mid-tier of the United States market, where we don't have Xiaomi and Oppo competing in the US. Because we don't have those companies making cheaper phones in the US, our options are a little different. From Steve Q3 Becker, do a drop test on the Sony before you send it back. Okay, Lar1980 is asking, what is your personal opinion on DxO? They get a lot of criticism when they provide their results. I used to lean on DxO for sort of a general overview on basic camera performance. Increasingly, I have walked away from that being any kind of valuable commentary. A camera is more than an auto mode shutter button. And I'm so tired, I am exhausted by tech reviewers who take super premium priced gadgets, $1,200 phones, and then kick off a camera review segment by saying, well, most average consumers are only going to use the auto HDR mode, so that's all I'm going to do here. I think that's professionally lazy, and I think that's intellectually lazy. I don't feel anyone should be recommending this phone to average consumers at $1,200. To me, that is a bad use of average consumer funds. And if you're not going to explore what the phone really has to offer, then I think you're painting a woefully incomplete view of what someone would be able to do with that. And a lot of people, a $1,200 phone, why don't you just go buy a real camera? And like, some people might choose to do that. Some people might want to just have a near professional grade software experience built into their phones for quick editorial, for, making short videos or making YouTube content or any number of reasons, or also just having a platform where you can edit that content directly from the camera that captured that content. I mean, like, go pull out a Sony A7 and try and edit on your Sony A7. You can't. But I can stitch clips together, slap music, slap a watermark, transitions, fades, picture in picture. I can keyframe. I can do motion graphics on a phone. I can do animated text. I can do title and credit scrolls. Like, I can do green screen. I can chroma key on a phone immediately from the camera that captured that content. There is something to be said for working directly as part of your workflow. And something I've actually tried to live more, like speaking that as a truth. Like, I do all my daily vlogs from trade shows directly in phone. And it's so much faster. I shoot something, I'm out at a trade show, drop it immediately into a timeline, cut it up, and then at the end of the night, I push render, and then I upload to YouTube, and I have a video, and you can watch that video. And that was my day at a trade show, soup to nuts, all done immediately from a phone. I never have to break out a laptop or find a memory card reader or any of that nonsense. So back to DxO, I viscerally disagree with a one number score. I feel that is completely incomplete to fully express what it's like using a camera. This camera's a 97. This camera's a 96. Do you know what camera is better for you? Because that one camera that's a 97 failed on macro photography, but that other camera who's a 96 excelled at capturing toddlers in movement. Like, you're not educated. It's just pithy entertainment that isn't really helping anyone make a purchasing decision. It's what the nerd feels good about, that their phone got a higher score than another phone. I already bought this phone because I'm a discerning consumer, and I see that the DxO score is higher than this other option, so I'm better than you. And that's about all you can take away from a full auto mode examination. No features, no secondary modes, no more analysis than just pixel peeping in full auto, and you get a number score. That to me isn't valuable commentary. So yeah, kudos to the OnePlus 8 for beating the Galaxy for a camera comparison on DxO. You will be completely unprepared for what the experience of shooting on a OnePlus is versus a Galaxy if all you do is read DxO scores. You will not know the differences. You will not know how they act, react, the feel, what some of the capabilities are. You will be misinformed by just following their number scores. From Fabies, I'd like to ask why Sony presentation is so disjointed to sell stage of the Mark II. This is a situation that smaller manufacturers fall into regularly. Like, LG is notorious for this. They announce a product, they get some early devices out into people's hands, and then we might not get shipping and pricing info for like another month. This has all been exacerbated by the current situation. Distribution and components and manufacturing are all messed up right now. And especially what limited conversations I've had with Sony PR, it's been a really trying time to try and put all the pieces together to appropriately launch a phone, especially one that's not going to get a ton of coverage and a ton of advertising in North America. Like, it's a mess kind of because the whole world is a mess right now. I mean, there's not really any better answer than that. I have a lot of sympathy for the people that are trying to drum up some general consumer interest in electronics right now. I feel a lot of people so many people are using their gadgets more aggressively than ever before, at the same time as they're all trying to save money on future gadget purchases. It's a rough time. It's really crazy. JT Moat. All right. We want to talk about some headphones. Hold on. I got to turn my chair around. Too many cables. I'm going to break something. All right. JT Moat asks, how do you like your Audeez and which do you have exactly? What was the previous go-to headphones and how do they compare? So these beautiful black plastic shelled cans, the Audeez LCD1. So this is a I would say this is sort of a mid-priced. To me, it's almost an on-ear headphone, but it's just at that size where you would maybe call this circumaural, not superaural. But these are my very first pair of planar magnetic headphones. And I'm kind of mad at myself that I haven't spent any more time up to now with planar magnetics. This is a very unique listening experience. Open-backed, very critical. Like, this is some of the most aggressive, sharp presentation of attacks for reference grade listening that I've heard in a while, especially at this price where we're, like I said, we're kind of at a medium point. We're not quite into the full territory of audiophile extravagance. We're not at like crazy high price tags for professional gear, but this is a step above. These retail $399, I believe. And the casing doesn't feel like a headset at $399, but the audio quality is articulate and razor sharp, aggressively sharp. And I still think they're kind of fun to just consume content. Like, some of my previous monitors haven't been fun to listen to music, but I rely on them because they're so starkly sterile. Like, if I really want to know what something sounds like, I turn to a pair of monitors, not a pair of fun consumer headphones. I've actually enjoyed the listening experience on these for just consuming content, in addition to hearing, almost hyper articulation of details in audio reproduction. I have been very pleasantly surprised with these. My previous open back go-tos, they're way over there. I love Sennheiser 599s. The Sennheiser 599s are, I just understand the 500 series sound so well. I'm kind of a Sennheiser brand whore. I really like their hardware. I have listened to 598s and 599s for so long that entertainment headphones sound wrong if they don't kind of sound like Sennheisers. I like these Audeezs better than my 599s, but it's also like I like them better at twice the price. So it's a really nuanced kind of conversation. But I'm worried because planar magnetics can be a bit more expensive. They can be a bit pricier. It's a different ear cup technology, just how you create the vibrations that become sound that your ears can hear. It's a little bit more like a ribbon microphone versus a dynamic microphone, if that means anything to you folks out there. You suspend a membrane in magnets as opposed to having a driver that has a membrane that wiggles on a coil. Man, they're just so clean. It's like I took everything I loved about the Sennheiser 599s, I dialed back the low frequency just a little bit, and then I peeled a dirty screen protector off of the 599s. You know that feeling? You've been looking at your phone, you've been using your phone for over a year, you've got this screen protector on it, and you're like, I just need to replace this. And you peel it off, and you see your pristine screen, and just like, it's that little bit sharper, clearer, brighter. You kind of acclimated to that dirty screen protector. For as much as I love the 599s, listening on the Audeezs was kind of like peeling off a dirty screen protector. And the 599s are really good. From Vazikos 8, can the Xperia 1 Mark II do burst shooting in RAW? It cannot currently, because there is no RAW capture in the Sony app at present. We expect that will be included when the phone actually goes out retail. Gary the Fireman, I still like my Pixel 4 XL, battery and all. Pixel 4 XL, such a good phone, and it got savaged by tech reviewers last year. Even the smaller Pixel 4, I think, is a really good phone for the right consumer. It's a little bit narrower recommendation, but I still think it's great. From Heikki, I've asked this some months ago, but could you do some kind of reviewer comparison, different dongles with their own DAC and amp, like the one from Audeez that I tipped some months ago? Not all of us have an LG V60, I've still been looking at how to do that and how to get those and how to do some kind of comparison around robin. It's just a lot of legwork. Tracking down a dongle here, a cable there, an adapter here, a DAP there, and it adds up. I really feel like if I want to do that, I should get some red fly or dragonfly red. That's the DAC that I'm talking about, and that's a $200 expense. A high diz is going to be $40 here or $50 there. It's one of those things like I need to be strategic in how I build that kind of commentary. And I know there are some people who really want to check it out, but I can't do it all in one burst. I can't do it all in one shot. From Ken Juma, talking about average consumers is just an excuse to take the easy route. I agree. It's also just the amount of effort that you're going to put into a video. If it's not really going to be, you're not really going to get a return on that energy or on that effort. I understand, but there are some creators out there who I feel like, man, I'd really love to hear your commentary on using this thing beast mode. There are some people who are so good at camera reviews, and then they get a phone and they're like, well, I pushed the shutter button and the colors are juicy. And you're like, man, I really wish you'd torn into this. You know so much about cameras and editing and color profiles and, the scientific data that goes into pixel structure. And then you got this phone and you're like, oh, but my Aunt Bertha is only ever going to use the default settings that came out of the box. So here's this $1,000 phone shooting 1080 video. Like, what are we doing? Come on. JT Moat, what's your favorite Android skin to use irrespective of hardware? Nova launcher. I am nothing if not a creature of habit, and I like Nova. And basically, after the initial review phase of trying to use someone else's launcher, I end up defaulting to Nova. OnePlus phones, I can stick with Oxygen OS for a while longer. The Pixel launcher was pretty good too. I don't think I've got Nova on my Pixel 4, but basically everything else, I need it to stay consistent. I need each phone to be as easily usable and familiar as possible. And that's where I get lazy. I go Nova. From SP12er, I hear, are you Sp12er? I would really like to know how I'm supposed to pronounce your Twitch handle. I hear CES is coming next year. Now, is that really a wise choice during a situation like we're in today? At some point, we need to figure out what the new normal is. I don't want to be one of the guinea pigs who has to figure that out. But in 6 to 7 months, I hope we have the beginnings of some kind of new normal. I feel social customs are going to be affected. I'm personally going to move to, pointing, air fist bumps, bowing, as opposed to handshakes and hugs like I used to. But we're going to have to figure out how to do this again. There are too many industries that depend on getting together a group of journalists and enthusiasts in that space, and NAM, Computex, IFA, MWC, E3. There is still some value in that mass communal gathering. The excitement that you have on the show floor, that buzz of activity, it can't be recreated through Nintendo Directs. We need, as a species, some kind of tribal, animalistic, person-to-person kind of engagement. And I don't know what it's going to look like. And CES 2021 could be a mess. I mean, you asked me about it today, and I'm going to say I don't want to go. I didn't go to CES this year, in CES 2020, and I'm really happy I didn't. But that doesn't mean we give up. So it's not ideal. it's going to be kind of rough, but we do need to figure it out. From Ken Juma, does it even matter for the average consumer what camera they use, especially among high-end phones? They're only looking at the pictures on their phones. Well, I mean, again, I think that's why we need to be so critical about why we have focused a conversation on premium products for a lowest common denominator use. Why are we recommending Galaxy S for average consumer use when Galaxy A is built for that? Why are we worried about protecting this mythical knuckle dragging, just barely covers basic smartphone use on a Pixel 4 XL when the Pixel 3a handles all of that and more? I mean, like, we've got these power envelopes that are actually way more powerful than we've sort of admitted, because analytics and metrics focus more on the premium end. You know, there's more excitement to be searching in Android communities at the expensive tier, but general consumers are shopping in a very sort of, you know, parabolic average price point. Mid-priced phones grossly outsell premium phones, just like cars, just like appliances, just like anything else. So it, you know, when we expand on that conversation, I feel we should expand on the demographics of people that we should be considering in those conversations. So, you know, if someone wants a purchasing recommendation from me, almost every phone gets a purchasing recommendation. Almost every gadget I use. I can't think of any phone recently where I said, you know what, don't buy it. But what I have said is, you should consider this phone if. And that's where I feel tech reviewing needs to pivot. If it's just an entertainment channel and all you want to do is make Samsung content, go enjoy it. Go have fun with that. But that's not a review channel. That to me isn't reviews. That's Samsung. That's a Samsung fan channel. It's an Apple fan channel. Like, I think someone who was kind of straight up about that, like John Redinger, wanted to get out of making kind of stock content on every device that came out. And he pivoted his own personal channel towards really just talking about the things that he thought were cool. So you go to John's channel for entertaining content and commentary from John about what John cares about. And that to me is so much more valuable than trying to pretend you're this objective review outlet when you don't want to be. I think that's better. Simon says Hypno is going to go eat dinner. Go enjoy. Simon says Hypno, thanks for dropping by. I really appreciate you in the live stream. I should probably start wrapping this up. I'm just going to scan real quick and see. Root Night 5, I want some planners. I only have traditional driver headphones. I fought it for a long time because planner magnetics used to be obscenely expensive and require extra breakout gear and ways to power it. Or you get something like the self-powered blue microphones. What are they? The Ella are planner magnetics. And so when these Audeezes came, I'm like, oh man, oh, okay, this is fresh. This was a fresh listening experience that I have not had before. It was pretty great. And I know, like, you know, I've seen a couple other comments saying like $399, that's a lot for headphones. I would feel pretty comfortable holding up the LCD ones and using them to replace the cans that I use in studio and the headphones that I enjoy listening to music with at home. And both of those headphones, my studio monitors are around $250 and my preferred entertainment headphones are around $180. And for $399, I could comfortably use that one headset for double duty at around $400, which is about what my standalone headphone costs would be. So price is always relative. And when you start talking about recording gear, I don't feel conflicted at all spending $3,000 to $5,000 on a single microphone. If it's the right sound for the job I need, then that's the price I pay, $3,000 to $5,000. If I'm making a YouTube video at home, I use a $100 mic with a $150 line activator and a $300 audio interface to get the sound I want, because that's the sound I want. I didn't just go buy, whatever USB mic was most conveniently accessible. When you have those kinds of concerns, you pay for the combinations of gear that facilitate what you're trying to accomplish. JT Mo. Well, looks like I'm getting a pair of LCD ones. Woohoo! Let me see if I can get an affiliate link for you. From SP12er, will you purchase an Xperia 1 Mark II for yourself? I thought you also owned the Mark I. Did you sell it, lost it somewhere? No, I only had a loaner. I had a loaner for the Mark I, and that went back to Sony. I have a long-term loaner on the Xperia 5, but Ricky, the YouTube tech guy, is borrowing that right now. And so this is another loaner. I'm just going to borrow it. I'm not sure if I'm going to buy a Mark II. When the retail, I know TK is, and I'm kind of hoping, like, if I can't get another retail review unit loaner from Sony, which I feel like I've been working really well with Sony PR. We'll have to see if that relationship comes through. But if I can't, I might pad out my Mark II longer term coverage and then see if I can trade TK a couple phones, and we can do like some back and forth channel collaboration. Just like with everyone else, so many members in our communities have been going through some financial hardships. My family, we're paying our bills, we're making rent, we're putting food on the table. I've been able to make a few small tech upgrades, but just like with ad revenue and with Patreon and with all these other sources of income, my numbers are down. So right now we're being very selective with business expenses, and I'm leaning a bit heavier on PR loaners and review units than some of the years past, where I just I'll buy every phone because our coverage can sort of survive it and the business expenses can kind of survive it. That's not true right now. So it's not any call for sympathy, or if you're already listening to a podcast like this or watching a podcast like mine, you're already the choir I'm sort of preaching to with a number of these situations. But that does mean I'm not sure what I'm going to do for a Galaxy Note review. I completely missed the Galaxy S because of the situation. And I'm not sure I'm going to throw down cash to come back to the Xperia 1 Mark II. It's really complicated stuff. And I'm not entirely sure what the Some Gadget Guy budget can sustain right now before we start opening up more businesses locally. Okay. There's a conversation happening about the Sony MDRs, and Sony MDRs are studio legendary. Gary the Fireman, general consumers should shop at the general store. I'm so far behind on the comments. There's some great interactions and conversations happening here. But I just saw the time. We're just past that 2 hours. SP12er. Yeah, that's fun. You should always collab with TK. I felt so bad. I really wanted to at least just be in the chat room for TK's stream on Saturday, and then for Sam and Andrew's and Matt's streams on Sunday. I had so much that I needed to knock out. So probably as good a place to sort of wrap up as any other. Matt Tyler, there's always me, Juan. I'll no doubt get the Mark II and the Note, so I'll help where I can. But I'm nervous about, again, Becca sent over this Mark I, and I was just terrified. about shipping. You can ask Sam and Matt about the ongoing shenanigans surrounding Sam's LG G8X. And man, as much as I very much appreciate people saying like, hey, I could loan you a personal phone. I don't want to have to like replace that phone if, a carrier, the post office loses it, the insurance on it, dealing with, taxes on international shipping. It's all a mess. So, again, I took up Becca on this one just because it was such but the timing didn't work out. So now I don't even really get to use it for what it is that I'm trying to borrow it for. Just so much extra stress on top of like, if it were a review unit and I had a good relationship with PR and it got lost in transit, or, maybe it got damaged, I have an easier time working that out. If it's someone's actual owned personal device, man, that's so much more stressful to deal with. So I'm going to be also very selective about how that goes down too. But yes, it is time to start wrapping this up. Let me take another drink of water here. Matt Tyler, don't use the U.S. Postal Service. Use FedEx. And Steve, my name ain't Becca. Nope. Again, you won't find... I appreciate this. Becca was concerned about how they were credited. I still feel like I need to say where this phone came from. But off the Patreon, it was like, oh, this isn't even my name on the Patreon. And I'm respecting that privacy. But Becca, you know who you are, and thank you so much for contributing, even though this didn't work out exactly as how we planned it. So, Gary the Fireman, if anyone hasn't seen it in the Discord, Juan, shot a great picture of the late, great Chris Cornell. Over the weekend, we had sort of a sad but touching remembrance of some artists that we cared about, and the Discord just kind of started sharing stories about concerts and musicians and stuff. And I have this amazing photo of Chris Cornell at a live performance. I was hanging off the railing of a VIP lounge holding my Canon 7D almost directly at eye line with Chris Cornell as he's wrapping up a concert and giving the crowd a fist bump. And it's all time the best photo I've ever taken of anything ever, outside of course of my daughter, because all of those photos are amazing that you never get to see. But just, some of the fun conversations and interesting and thoughtful and human conversations that we've been having on the Discord. So folks, it's time to wrap up this podcast. And first of all, I want to thank you for hanging with. I know this was a bit of a stuttery and rambly show for me, being so hyper focused on shooting content that I didn't even really plan the kind of podcast that I usually try to put together. But, having these kinds of conversations and these kinds of chats in the live stream and getting to answer questions, I really feel we need to make this a more regular episode, a pajama podcast or a viewer takes the wheel podcast, a viewer Q&A kind of podcast, where we get to just kind of rapid fire. I'm pretty good on the spot. Oh yeah, Gadget Guy, answer me this. But in addition to all of that, all of our tech geekery and all of the fun shenanigans and our hobbies, technology being a part of our lifestyle, and that being meaningful right now for how we interact with people and how we communicate and how we share experiences. I've ended most of my podcasts in a similar fashion, but over this last week, I think it's become even more apparent. Like, I think this message is even more critical. People are living and dying by how they are able to share stories and spread information. It's always been a critical component of our hobby, of our tech enthusiasm, that tech can be a force for bringing communities of people together. Tech can be a force for confronting situations that we find distasteful or objectionable. And I feel like over these last 2 weeks, And over these last several months, we have been shown this time and time and time again, how critical and how important this access is. Being able to broadcast a message, being able to create a platform, being able to disseminate information, being able to refute information. And it's so precious that we not only protect it, but that we empower people to embrace this. And you know, the words start to sound rote. They start to sound repetitive. They start to sound rehearsed. But I know the people in this live stream right now, in this chat room right now, have had those conversations with their family and friends. From some of the biggest and headiest and most sensitive topics of our current culture, all the way down to some of the silliest and goofiest minutia of like, what setting do I use in this app for this emoji? That spectrum of knowledge is being tested and taxed like never before. As we lean on our gadgets, as we lean on our electronics, as we lean on services and platforms and communities and social media and news and video, I know for a fact that those of you here, those of you listening to me, those of you in the live chat, that you have been those members in your communities rising to the occasion to be good resources. And I know for a fact that you have probably not gotten the kudos you deserve. You have probably not been given quite the pat on the back that you really should have been given just for being hobbyists in this space, but having the knowledge that other people could tap into. So I've said this on previous podcasts. I say it again today, and I'll probably say it again next week. But thank you for being a good tech neighbor. Thank you for being a good tech citizen. As we face enormous historical challenges, we will continue to rise to these occasions to be the helpers in our communities. So, folks, on that note, I hope you have an amazing week. I hope you have a safe week. I want to see all of these faces back here next week, all of these usernames back in the live chat, all of the subscribers who follow the audio version of this podcast after the broadcast. I want your ears back on this next week because you're safe and healthy. Be well. Take care. Do awesome with your technology this week. And I hope to see you back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I love y'all. Take care.